Now, the first thing that you'll want to do, guys, is save this character out before you do anything else. Just save him into your own location, your own student work location. If you haven't done so, just create one on the Y drive there and just save this out. Don't overwrite this file if at all possible. Okay, so do that first, and if you accidentally overwrite this file, it's just going to stay as this character. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to create a base pose, and the base pose is very important because when we're in an animation production, especially for games, all of the animation starts from a base pose. So it takes a little bit of time to actually pose the character correctly. And I'll talk a little bit about that after I finish posing this guy. I'll get you guys started. So what we'll do is we're just going to create any sort of pose you like. But this is for an idol. Okay, so in the previous videos, you'll notice that there were a bunch of pieces of idle animation. So you can base it on your favorite character in a video game, whatever idle they're doing, or you can come up with something unique if you like. For this one, I'm just going to do the old school, Tekken Ryu sort of fighting pose. And I'm just going to get him into this kind of aggressive stance. So get both of his arms up. Normally, these poses, they take around about, say, 40-45 minutes to pose correctly. So, spend a bit of time with this. You can imagine, getting the fingers working as well as all these other joints. It's going to take a little bit of time. So what I'll do is I might pause it here and I'll come back and I'll show you how this little guy looks later on. Okay, and we can go over exactly what I was thinking of when we were getting this guy into position. Okay, great. I just wanted to, while I was doing this hand, just mention that to animate this thumb, you've got this blue ball there, so just make sure that you select that, and then that's to rotate the thumb base. Okay, so, oh, excuse me. I've just spent a little bit of time animating or posing this character out, and I'll just show you what I've done. First of all, it's important that your character looks correct from all angles, especially for video games. So you just want to orbit around and make sure that it's got a good sense of weight, that the hips are in between the feet, that the knees and the feet are kind of facing in the same direction. You can see that with this back leg here, I just pointed the feet just out a little bit. If you're not sure what the pose should look like, just get up out of your chair and just try acting it out yourself and just see which direction the hips are facing in relation to the feet. And you can see here I've got this front foot forward, so that means that the hips are rotated around towards us just a little bit. And then I've also rotated the hips, the upper torso just around a little bit, and then I've rotated the head away from us just a bit, because otherwise, when I rotated everything around, the head was facing towards us, so I just counted the head rotation. I wanted to have a nice silhouette of this hand. This one here, it's kind of tucked into the body there a little bit as far as the silhouette, but you can see that it's got a little bit of negative space from this position here. The front arm, I've rotated this hand so that that arm is in front. You'd normally have that hand just underneath the chin. The reason for that is just so that you can block if someone's going to attack you. And I've given him, I've crouched him down just a little bit so that he could spring forwards or backwards if he wanted to into the attack. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the pose. It's a good place to start. But you do want to spend some time on developing these key poses, because I worked on a project and we had to redo these poses. It was at least 7 times. and we'd already animated, done all the animation, done all these attacks, and then we just kept on changing these base poses because they didn't look good, or the model had an update for whatever reason, and then that meant that we had to redo the first and last pose on all these other pieces of animation, and also the way that the animation kind of flowed in and out of those key poses, those base poses. So it was a lot of work. So to save yourself some time and effort, definitely when you're in production, make sure that there's a general consensus that all the base poses are perfect, because you don't want someone coming up, a couple of weeks later once you're in production saying, what would be cool? Why don't we have this sort of pose? Or I saw this in another game and I think that maybe we could do that. Make sure that it's all locked. Okay. Now, like I said, you can do any base pose that you like for this idol. You could have a very confident character who's just kind of standing there with his hands by his side. Maybe they're not in a fighting pose, maybe they're just kind of relaxed. But what you want to do is we're going to animate an idol or some sort of keep alive so that in the video game it doesn't look like you've just got a stationary or motionless character. So think about the personality that you want to instill in this animation, and that should be reflected in the pose. So if they are awkward or shy, maybe that could be the pose. If they are a very strong and confident character, then obviously there's so many options that you could go for. We've had some people with this exercise that have done like some surfer poses, so they're on a surfboard, those sorts of poses. You could do that. Just be creative with it and try to come up with a really interesting pose. Now once you've done that, just save the pose out, give it a name. Let's just call this base pose. And if you stuff it up, you can always just go back to it and start from there. Okay. All right. In the next one, I'll show you how we can animate this.